So this is my space. And when we have a funeral and a casket gets moved into my space, it throws my mojo, and I have to figure out how to address the congregation while working with this casket. This morning there's an elephant in the room, and I'm trying to work around it. And the elephant has a name. I want to be careful how I do this. Our Episcopal Bishop, Washington, D.C., Marion Edgar Buddy, is in the room, and I need to name that. But for the moment, I'd like to kind of just usher her out of my space just a little over here, and I'm going to bring her back eventually. But what I want to do is begin by focusing attention on the gospel, Jesus' first public declaration, address, sermon. It is indicated that he's been doing this, but this is in Luke's gospel the first time we hear from him, his first sermon, and it's mercifully brief. and it's about mercy. It's about mercy for those who are least likely to get it. Spirit of the Lord is upon me. I have been anointed to come and proclaim the Spirit of God, the Spirit of love and mercy upon those who dwell in darkness, the captives, the prisoners, the blind, the poor, all those who haven't really a hope of ever leaving the darkness. These are the ones who are receiving the mercy of God to be brought forth from the darkness and into the light. And the hometown crowd goes, ooh, wow, he speaks amazing, gracious words, and they're like, wow. And then someone says, well, wait a minute. He just claimed, right, didn't he, to be anointed with the Spirit of God? He's not. He's not a prophet. He's not Isaiah. He's the son of Joseph. He's Jesus. He's one of our own. And shoot the messenger, and therefore, be deaf to the message. So, anticipating this response, Jesus takes it up a couple notches. And he says, oh, right, remember the time? First, there's that wonderful line, no prophet is welcomed in his own town. And he goes, remember that time back when our ancestors were in this terrible time of famine? And the Lord, the Spirit of the Lord, with all that love and mercy and generosity, came rushing in and to our ancestors, and they were not receptive. So long had they been turned away from the Lord, occupied in love with whatever, the world, that they're in a position where they didn't hear. So what happened, that love and mercy, that Spirit that comes to us and will not return unless that purpose is achieved, jumped right over you guys, remember? Jumped right over you guys and went to the people you hate. Went to the people, those Samaritans, and that widow, that poor widow, was drenched in mercy. If the shoe fits, wear it, is basically what he said. Whoa! They went from isn't he wonderful to literally seizing him. And they dragged him out of the synagogue, and they were on their way to throw him off a cliff. And somehow he slipped out, got away, escaped. Why is it so hard for human beings to hear a plea for mercy and to respond favorably? Mercy is taking something of value and giving it to someone you don't value. Mercy is taking something that means much to you and giving it to the stranger, to the foreigner, to your enemy, not, as we are so inclined, to our family, to our spouse, to our clan, to our friends, to those among us. Acts of mercy could also well be understood as that moment, and it can be repeated many, many times, of stepping down off your throne. And I say throne because when mercy is being asked of us, it's being asked to be bestowed on someone who we see to be almost contemptuously below us. And so stepping down off the throne in order to provide pardon, mercy, puts you on level ground, and you look into the eyes and you see and recognize a person who shares your humanity. You step down and you recognize, and you are suddenly abiding in a place of common humanity. The history of human beings receiving, Nehemiah, I visualize that now with that story that Doug shared of people hearing the law. Anytime you hear the law, commandment, you name it, it's love the Lord your God, right? It sums up, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and your neighbor as yourself. And so they're hearing this and they're wilting under that nose like, oh God, we're going to have to be merciful to what? The Samaritans and all those other people. And they're melting. And why is it that we have this response? And so here we have, yes, bring her back in here to my comfortable space, this bishop who had the audacity of requesting a plea of mercy from our president in the most public way. And there are those who applaud her spunk, and those who would prefer to throw her off the cliff. There are birds among us who practice allo feeding, A-L-L-O feeding, allo feeding, against all expectations. These are the birds that are happy, willing to feed the hatchlings of people unrelated to them. They do that, allo feeding. And when they do that, when they actually go out of their way to feed the hatchlings of some other unrelated group over here, the effect is to vitalize and strengthen the vitality and the longevity of the entire species. It takes a lot to respond favorably to a plea for mercy. But in turn, if we're willing to do that hard work that goes against our if we do it, we will find ourselves directly in touch with our common humanity. And when you are abiding there, in your common humanity, connected in the most real way with everyone, that place is more valuable than all the gold and all the wealth and all the power on earth or in heaven. Because when you're abiding there, you are in the hands of God.